On the set. Okay, welcome to the next episode of Awesome Games Replays. We're doing a Tetris the Grandmaster series. We have, I'd like to make the introductions. We have that flown in from out of state. We've got KevinDDR. Say hello, Kevin.
Hey, guys.
And we've got Kitaru, Alex, from out in town, but out of town.
Yeah, coming in from San Jose.
Representing NorCal and SoCal, I guess.
Yeah.
I've got Color Thief coming from
London?
Ontario?
Waterloo, Ontario.
Waterloo, Ontario.
Canada, yo.
Yeah, hell yeah, Canada. Yeah, I didn't know they had like electricity in Canada. And I didn't know they could play arcade games in Canada.
So we've got Pablo Mike Hagar here.
Woo!
Yay!
You might have recognized him from our Bankai Mora series that we did episode that we did last time.
Heck yeah!
And I'm a TGM player as well, although I'm not in the same league as these guys. But I can hold my own against normal mortals in this game.
Yeah, he's good, man. He's super good.
So we're going to be doing TGM1 right now. So guys, maybe let's talk about what Tetris the Grandmaster is and how it evolved from regular Tetris. So who'd like to take that while we...
Yeah, so, like, we got a very different Tetris experience than the Japanese people got. The first version of Tetris to be popular in Japan was actually Sega's arcade version of Tetris. It wasn't released internationally. Sega only got a license to produce an arcade version for the Japanese market. But it feels quite a bit different from, like, say, Nintendo Tetris or Game Boy Tetris, which most people were first familiar with. The speed gets really, really fast, like the pieces fall quickly, but they don't lock when they hit the ground. The game is still extremely difficult because they lock quickly after they hit the ground, but there's this whole mechanic of pieces hitting the ground and kind of like scraping the bottom of the screen, and like what qualifies as a stable stack is quite a bit different because you have to maintain mobility for pieces scraping along the ground.
Yeah, it's like it opens up, like, by virtue of having the lock delay, or was what that's called. Yeah, it really, like, opens up the possibility for higher gravity because, you know, American Tetris games, like, well, not American, but international Tetris games, such as, you know, NES Tetris, they don't have that kind of mechanic, so once it gets to a certain point, you know, the gravity gets too fast and you can't move pieces where you want to. That game actually has, like, well, sort of a kill screen at level 29, maybe. Alex, you want to talk about? Kitaru, you want to talk about that?
Sure, yeah. Because, yeah, if you look at the top speed in NES Tetris, it's 1G, which means the piece falls 1 row per frame. And in NES Tetris, that's the end of the game. If you can mash rapidly, you can get the pieces to the sides of the playfield for a little bit, but it's pretty much the end. Like, you lose your mobility, pieces start just piling up in the center at that point. So it's kind of the end of the game. Whereas in Sega Tetris, 1G is the, like, whole end game. It's like the second half of the game is playing at that speed. By virtue of having lock delay, it's still possible to maintain mobility despite the very high gravity. So yeah, it's two different kind of styles of play. When you look at Game Boy or NES or Atari arcade, it's all about, trying to keep the piece from hitting the ground. Whereas you start to get more of a, like, mobility-based, building a pyramid that you can sort of get pieces where they need to go under the very high constraints of speed.
Yeah, and I think if you talk about, like, one of the other influences of TGM was a fan game, I think it's Shimizu Tetris.
Yeah.
It's like
so this is on the Sharp 68K computer. It was basically like a homebrew Tetris clone released for that machine. It was quite popular back in that era. And it was cloning specifically the Sega style of playing Tetris. But like a lot of clones have lots of different knobs you can tweak to change the settings and so on. And this one let you turn the gravity up to the absurd
20 cell.
ultimate speed of 20G, or falling 20 cells in one frame. Because the screen's only 20 cells wide, that means the pieces are glued to the ground, basically. They're never in the air. They're always scraping the bottom of the screen. It's really cool to play like this. And it all started with a homebrew game on the 68K computer, so that's kind of cool.
Wow, that's really neat. Like, again, a computer that didn't come out here in America.
Yeah, it's sort of neat that it's like this fan game. I actually don't know how popular Shimizu Tetris was, but apparently it was popular enough that, when Eureka made TGM, they decided to incorporate that element of it.
If people want to look this up and play it, is the casual name just Shimizu Tetris? Isn't it like Semi-Pro something?
Yeah, I think the official name of the game is Tetris Semi-Pro 68K.
Yeah.
And the nickname is Shimizu Tetris. I think the theory maybe like the author. Or
something. The author's name's Shimizu or something. So.
Yeah, if you look on like Tetris Concept, there's probably a link somewhere to maybe a Dead or Alive link to that game. I don't think anyone plays it seriously, so
we could probably dig it up.
But if someone wants it, we'll find it. Someone has it.
That's cool.
So.
But different aspects from that clone were also integrated in Tetris the Grandmaster. Like, you could change the well size, like the field size. It's normally 10 by 20 in a normal game of Tetris, but a popular mode in Shimizu Tetris was to make it like really, really
narrow.
Skinny. Yeah. So that it's only like 4 cells wide, and like that completely changes the way you have to think about things, and it's kind of fun. So Tetris the Grandmaster doesn't have a mode that's 4 cells wide, but one of the codes you can put in to play like a gimmick mode is to play big mode. So what they do, they make, instead of each block being 1 by 1 and having 4 of them, it's 4 blocks of 2 by 2.
Oh.
So it basically halves your width. So it's like a width of 5, and like the blocks are like huge.
Yeah,
it looks kind of cool.
Half your width and half your height. I guess
we're streaming on this. We can we can play.
Yeah, sure.
You guys keep talking, and we can play a throwaway game of big mode.
So
what's the code?
4 lefts down CBA.
So we'd like to give a shout out to Mahara from Eureka, who's kind of brought us together here. So please put out Tetris the Grandmaster for Mahara.
Yeah. So it is big mode, which is kind of it's a goofy mode. Here, I guess if you guys want to make sure you're close to Mike while talking.
Okay. Let me go look at the webcam.
Game's so loud. So. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Can you take the 2 Sega ashtrays in front of Kevin? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Don't worry about it.
Okay, so that's where Tetris the Grandmaster comes from, Sega roots, and it's very consistent in terms of basic game stuff that's implemented. Different games rotate in different ways. You color the pieces in different ways. Like, there are lots of subtle things you can do to it, and it definitely follows directly from that Sega Tetris tradition. Sega also released a couple other games that are clearly Tetris games, but they released them after they lost the Tetris license. So you can check out Flashpoint and Block Seed. They're pretty original takes on the Tetris concept. Kind of heavy on the gimmicks, but like, that just shows how strong the Tetris culture was in Japan. Like, this isn't a one-off game. They had Sega Tetris, they had Block Seed, they had Flashpoint. That's 3 arcade games right there. There was a port to Mega Drive, but that was canceled due to like licensing problems. They actually finished the game.
I'll adjust the game audio in just a second.
So it was mostly the Sega Tetris influence, and then when TGM came out, it was really sort of different from anything else that was out at the time. Kind of the culture with Sega Tetris when it was being played was people were so good at that game that they would just counterstop it. They would max it out at whatever the max score is. They'd max out the lines as well. And there wasn't really a Tetris game that had kind of a challenge where it's impossible to get the perfect score. So TGM was one of the first games that had that kind of system, that had a an ongoing challenge where people could get better and better at the game instead of just counter-stopping it.
I'll go ask him how's it going on.
Yeah, because the goal in TGM is time attack. You have to get to the end as fast as possible with a Grandmaster grade. You get a grade by playing well and getting Tetrises and so on, and then the time attack is just a completely open-ended challenge. You can keep on pushing the game to its limit. And people, like the records in these games keep getting beaten and beaten again. Like, I can't remember the last time a new world record in TGM was done, but I'm pretty sure sometime in the last year a few records have changed.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's a couple of people that are, either, gunning for the sub 9-minute clear or, down there. Like, there's, I forget how many players are sub 9 now, but like it's a good handful that have actually pulled it off, and
which is incredible.
Yeah, but the point is that like people are still getting better and better at those games. Like maybe the records are getting closer to that, the limits of human capabilities
like
now.
task level.
Or yeah, pretty much in the case of TGM1, pretty much task level. I mean, it's tool assisted speedrun. It's pretty stunning how good people have got at this game. It's a game that you can. I don't know. I mean, it is possible to play in theory, like a perfect game, but it's mostly kind of.
You're always
improving. Yeah, you're pushing your limit, and
Okay. So we've talked a lot about where the game comes from. Do you guys want me to maybe play around at TGM1, and you guys can explain what makes this different from Sega Tetris, the additions, and so on?
Yeah, well, yeah, sure, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Is the game volume good now?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is good.
Alright, we should get close to the
Yes, the mic.
move some in the sweet basement studio.
Yeah,
Garage studio.
Yeah, feel free to move things, guys. 'Cause,
Okay.
let me see. Let's go. I'm gonna go ahead and do a little.
Sure.
Alright, so Color Thieves just started his game. So one of the interesting things you notice about TGM1 is kind of... So at the start of there's no instant drop. There's only a soft drop that locks. So the consequence of this is that at the start of the game, you're going to be seeing players stack all the way up to the top of the screen, more or less. And the reason for this is actually that a lot of time lost playing the game is dropping pieces in the low levels, because the gravity is so slow, and you got a long distance to manually drop the piece. So if you can stack up to the top, you can reduce the amount of time that it takes basically to stack. Alex, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Also, probably want to cover some of the mechanics stuff.
Yeah, like the wall kicks and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing I'll really talk about is the randomizer. TGM has a randomizer system that sort of balances out the pieces that you get. It keeps a history of the last 4 pieces that you have, and then we'll try to re-roll to avoid repetition. And this kind of helps, sort of make it more consistent for time attack.
Isn't this one 3 pieces?
No, remember it's 4 pieces and rolls 4 times. Other games roll more times.
It's the rolls that change.
Yeah, so it's it's a very big difference from something like NES Tetris, where it's not purely memoryless.
NES Tetris actually has 1 roll, but yeah, it's a little bit more.
Yeah, it's very it's a lot more forgiving, I would say, as a randomizer. It's you can still get hosed by the randomizer to some extent, but it's a lot easier to predict what's coming next in a way. Now, that's a marked difference as well from modern Tetris games, where they use what's called a bag randomizer, where basically it's as if you put all the pieces in a bag and started drawing them one by one until you ran out of pieces in the bag.
And then you
reshuffle the bag, and then refill the bag, reshuffle, and start drawing again.
Right, so TGM's randomizer kind of strikes up a good balance. It's balanced enough that you can, use it for consistent, speedrunning, but it's not so predictable as just purely shuffling the 7 pieces. And, because when you just shuffle the 7 pieces, the most distance you can ever have between 2 pieces is 12. One at the beginning of one bag and one at the end of the other. And it also just, you kind of know, you can read the bag and you know exactly what pieces you've already seen in it, and, there's less of an element of unpredictability.
And in fact, there's an algorithm developed by, if I'm not mistaken, Color Thief, for playing forever with bag randomizer. Yeah, yeah, I did that. It's pretty crazy, actually. I mean, there's always all these kind of stupid articles and, PhD theses
about
how, TGM is impossible, or not TGM, but Tetris is impossible to play forever. But if you have a bad randomizer, yes, it is completely possible to play forever following an algorithm. So,
It's not even that complicated.
yeah, it's not even really complicated, it's not too difficult. So, essentially, by having this different randomizer, TGM is a way more interesting game to play than, I would say, any modern Tetris game. And also, any game that has a completely memoryless randomizer, where...
I might be a point of contention there, but yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the randomizer. Another thing in terms of rotation rules is that I would say that TGM sort of pioneered the wall kick. There were games before that would maybe nudge the piece in a direction after if you rotate against a wall. I think Atari was the first one that did that, just to sort of work around the way the rotation system works in that game. But this is the first game I think that really pushed that system. And the wall kick system is really simple. It's just that if you rotate and the piece can't, with running against the wall, it'll try to push it one space to the right or left to kind of nudge it off of things. And this makes it a little bit, I don't know, a little bit more comfortable to play at high speeds. You're not bumping against walls and have to move away from them.
Yeah, that's some awkward situations in games that don't have wall kicks where you feel that the piece should be able to move, but it can't. And, it kind of limits your options, whereas TGM, having wall kicks, provides more options to the player. And of course, modern games also have wall kicks, but modern Tetris games have kind of gone in the opposite direction, where there's too much piece mobility.
There's if you've ever heard of the T-spin triple or those kind of things in modern games, the amount of mobility that you're given is just way beyond just simple nudging left and right.
It basically makes the game impossible to make hard, in a sense. There's no way to make a challenging game when you have that much piece mobility, or at least not a challenging single-player game.
Nice. Yeah, the focus in modern games has changed much more to multiplayer versus more so than single-player, just because of all of the mobility they've given the player.
Yeah.
It lends itself better to strategic spins and things like that. In modern games, you get extra garbage sent to your opponent for doing spins. So the T-spins, extra mobility there really helps. But for single player, it's a lot less. It's downplayed quite a bit.
I mean, I could be wrong, and this is maybe some crazy revisionist thinking or something, but I think actually that part of the intense focus on multiplayer in modern games is not. The increased mobility is not a result of the focus on multiplayer. Instead, the focus on multiplayer is a result of the increased mobility that they gave the player. And they kind of realized, we can't make an interesting single-player game anymore. Oops. So, I don't know. I mean, at least to me it feels that way in some sense. That, people who play multiplayer Tetris games, they think, why would you play single-player? Tetris is so easy, but...
In a lot of modern games, single-player is just kind of a throwaway. It's what you use to learn the game. But the focus ends up being if you want to play it seriously, you end up playing multiplayer. But TGM is the I guess the expression of the true challenging single player game.
It's only as versus though.
Yeah, it does have versus, and TGM versus is actually
really fun.
Very, very fun. Maybe we'll have time to show off that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's really hilarious and fun. So
And then I think, what else can we talk about TGM? I guess we haven't talked about the grading system.
Yeah.
Well, you should talk a little bit about DAS and
sure.
pre-rotating pieces and
some
things.
other changes. Some of the changes that were made to make the game a lot more playable, because they've taken away a lot of things from the player. Right, when you have instant gravity, it's very hard. So in order to make the game a lot more playable, there's a thing called delayed auto shift, or DAS. Which is in most Tetris games, but
what I would say is that if you look at your NES Tetris or Atari Tetris or Game Boy Tetris, the interesting thing is that the piece movement speed when you hold left or right is pretty slow. If you look at Atari or NES, it's good enough that you can at least get pieces to the walls, but it ends up being I don't know, how would I say this?
it's limiting. Like,
yeah, I guess limited.
So yeah, you know, when you, sure everyone who's listening is familiar with this. You know, you hold the button down and the piece moves once and then starts shifting automatically, which is why it's called delayed auto shift. And there's various games over time have had different speeds of delayed auto shift, both in the amount of time it takes for the auto shift to start moving the piece, and also in the speed at which the piece moves once it has started moving in auto shift.
Yeah. So I would say
TGM, of course,
TGM takes after Sega in that it has very fast auto shift, so it's very good for like speedrun kind of optimizations, time attack, you know.
Yeah, it's actually every frame the piece moves. So.
Yeah, it's after like a quarter-second startup, the piece moves every frame. So you can also charge up your DAS during the delay between pieces.
Yeah.
So what you would end up doing is, you know, before the next piece comes out, you hold left or right and, you know, get it pre-charged. So when it comes out, it's instantly moving at full speed
yeah, if you
toward
see
the wall.
Cohen playing right now, you'll see sometimes his piece just spawns and it's instantly moving really fast. Like,
basically every
all
piece.
the time.
Yeah.
Pretty much every piece. I mean, you do it a lot. In fact, ideally when you're playing TGM, you should be using pre-charged auto shift almost all the time. Because making individual taps is very slow. And that is really harsh for time attack. So, in a sense, they've changed it where, you know, with NES Tetris, if you wanted to move the pieces faster, you had to tap really, really, really fast.
Well, maybe. Most players in that game, it's at least fast enough that you can survive in NES Tetris using left and right, and, you know, you can max out the game that way.
I just mean, if you wanted to move a piece faster, you would have to do that.
It's like in old shoot-'em-ups, it's possible to, like, tap faster than the normal, like, fire speed.
Yeah, it's very similar to that, actually. So TGM is like, essentially it's auto-fired for piece movement, which is great. I mean, it makes the game way more playable and less brutal on your wrist than it would be. I actually can't even fathom TGM without fast delayed auto shift.
Yeah,
it just doesn't even make sense.
So thanks to Sega for bringing us fast auto shift.
Yeah, that's another element they took from Sega, which I think was a great gameplay invention. So.
I think the IRS though is the big.
Yeah,
that was Arika's invention, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's to me makes all the difference.
Yeah, the initial rotation system is Arika's invention, and basically before it actually hold rotate left or rotate right, and when the piece enters the playfield, it comes spawned in that orientation, which is you can hear like a little like sound effect, like a little like metallic sound at the beginning of some of Color Thief's pieces right now. It's because he's pre-rotating.
And you'll see that some pieces, you know, you can see their initial spawn orientation in the next piece, but when they come out spawned 90 degrees left or right of that, that means that he pre-rotated the piece.
Yeah, and it gives you more options for mobility when you get to the very high play speeds. You can pre-rotate it into a position that gives you more choices to go left or right or that sort of thing. For example, a big one is with the L and J pieces, they come with one of their notches facing the stack. But let's say you pre-rotate them so they're in their letter position, like the L looking like an L, like with the two-cell wide part up the bottom. That means that there's two spots that it can land on whatever's in the center of the playfield, so that gives you more of a chance to land it on the middle and then be able to decide whether to move it left or right from there.
Yeah, pieces are less likely to kind of get jammed on the playfield.
Yeah.
But it's not just that they automatically don't get jammed on the playfield, it's a very skillful, in order to move this piece, I need to pre-rotate it and then rotate it back, you know, or whatever, to get it where I want it.
Just apologies to Mike Hagar. I just destroyed his.
Yeah, that's maybe unfortunate.
That's okay. It gives me motivation.
Yeah, 10:33.
You're very gracious.
So that was a great time. That was a great time by Color Thief. 10:33. To give you an idea. I don't have the Western rankings in front of me, but I think the fastest Western time is
like a
9 minutes 40 by Jacko Rochi.
Yeah, my own personal best is just under 10 minutes, so that's decently close. It shows you all the stuff we talked about in terms of like the randomizer, all the tools at your disposal. This is really a game where you can realistically expect to play
consistently
pretty high level every single time. Like if you die, the game isn't screwing you over, you just suck.
Yeah, you know, there are some Tetris games where, I mean, I guess it's not totally the case with NES Tetris, but
you know, there's
you can kind of get hosed by the randomizer, you know, or you can be put in a really awkward situation by the randomizer, is what I would say. Like, the difficulty of the game from play to play is not really consistent. You know, sometimes it's a very hard game, sometimes it's nice to you, so.
Right, what I would say is that with NES Tetris, I think there's an element where I think you could expect a very high score every time if you're a good player. But I don't know if you could, max out the score in NES Tetris every single time you played, just because depending on the piece distribution, it might not be feasible every single time. Maybe a high percent of the time, but maybe not 100%.
So now we've talked about the differences, I guess, between TGM and other games and sort of the history of where it came from. So now I guess it's probably a good time to start talking about maybe the grading system and the other stuff. So I guess maybe should I start a game and then you guys who know way more about the internals of the grading system than I do can talk about it.
Yeah,
so,
that sounds good.
All right.
So right now we're going to have KevinDDR step up, and everyone's going to be talking about the grading system.
Time to step out of retirement and play in public for the first time in a while. All right. Let's see what this old horse can do. Yeah.
Not ready for the Blue Factory yet.
No Blue Factory.
Yeah, you're good.
Let's. All right. I hope my head's not in the way of this camera.
Nice.
No.
That would be
Let me check the video. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, sweet.
Mike's server.
You're with the snip right here, but it's really simple.
Yeah. Okay, so so your first game was successful. You got the Grandmaster grade. I guess. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Let's talk about what it takes to get a Grandmaster grade in TGM1.
Okay, so this game is points. Now, like we said earlier, this is a game of time attack, not points. But in Tetris the Grandmaster 1, points are used to determine your grade. So you still have to play well, score well, go for the Tetrises. There's a little more to this game than just straight up Tetrises equal more points. It's got like a little combo system built in, where if you clear with consecutive pieces, lines of like doubles or greater, like it jacks up a combo multiplier. It's not really that lucrative. It's kind of slower for time attack to clear a lot of singles and doubles and that kind of thing instead of just Tetrises. You'll notice like a line clear in this game takes like
It's like,
is that a whole second?
It's, because plus the normal entry delay, I think the line clear animation is 40 frames, and then with the entry delay, it's around a second that you have to wait.
Yeah, so if you can get like one Tetris instead of 4 singles, you're already saving a lot of time. So a big part of the time attack for this game is clearing Tetrises anyway. So the way the players get their points and get their Grandmaster is to get Tetrises.
And then there are certain grade barriers that you need to pass by certain points. So you need to be like scoring.
The level system too.
The level system. Oh yeah. Sure. That's a big one. I don't know how I missed that the
If
first
we're
time.
going to explain the grades, we should probably mention the level system.
Yeah. So the level system.
You're probably used to clearing 10 lines and going up a level, but that's definitely not what's going on here. Levels go up to 999. We'd be here all day if we had to clear that many lines. Every time a piece enters the screen, the level counter goes up by 1, and every time you clear a line, it goes up by 1. Or if you clear a double, it'll go up by 2, and a Tetris will go up by 4. And then the section boundaries?
And then the section boundaries.
Oh, jeez.
Each
like right now?
Right now, he's stuck at a section boundary right now.
Okay. Guys,
so,
I just want to interject. Aqua's asked, interject define some of the lingo and before.
Oh, yeah.
So let's pay attention to that.
Yeah, for sure. If there's like I think we've talked about like DAS, which is delayed auto shift, which is like the key repeat, and we talked about IRS, which is initial rotation system.
That's holding the button
which is holding the button. Yeah, it's like buffering a rotation for the next piece.
Yeah.
So if there's any others,
Yeah, and when we talk about level stop here, that's because at every 100 boundary, so like 99, 199, 299, etc., like pieces entering the screen no longer increase the level. You need a line clear. So you can't just brainlessly be playing. You have to like be in control, be aware of what you're doing, and recognize that you need a line clear and actually to break into the next section at that point. So when we say Kevin was level stopped, he was at like 199 or something, and he was not clearing a line for several pieces. So that's like, from a time attack perspective, that's just completely wasted time where you're doing nothing productive. So, yeah.
For sure. And then I guess the other aspect of getting a grade is that there's certain grade barriers that you need to be at by certain level sections in the game, as well as like a certain time attack pace that you need to maintain in order to to get the GM grade at the end.
Yeah, and these sort of details have gotten progressively more hardcore as the series has gone on. But in TGM1, they're pretty loose. Like, you saw me beat the game in like 10 minutes and 30 seconds. You have to beat it within like 13 minutes and 30 seconds to get the Grandmaster grade is one of the conditions. So, like, meeting that is very, very reasonable. You can play like I did, but like far more conservatively and still pass the 13 minutes, 30 seconds.
One thing I want to say is that from my perspective, TGM1 is a really, even though it seems really, really hard, it's actually not that bad to master the game. I'd say anybody playing, semi-consistently, not even that consistently, can do it within a year or two.
Absolutely.
And I think it's because it's the first time Eureka ever made a TGM game, and they weren't sure how people would do. I mean, 13 and a half minutes is actually quite a lot of time, considering the world record is under 9 minutes, right?
8:48 or something.
Yeah, so I mean, this is very different from the other games, which the conditions are much, much more strict, where even really, really good players can't do it every time, whereas in this game, you can basically do it every time.
Yeah. I think what Pablo said is really important too, in a sense that like this was a new thing at the time. They had no clue how people would take to the challenge of the game. They didn't know if people would be able to clear in 13 minutes. It was, I mean, at least it seems to me almost like a lucky fluke that they balanced it so well. So
yeah, good job, Mahara. And Eureka crew. Thank you.
I think it's interesting also to note, you could tell that they didn't know how people were going to take to it, because in the demonstration of the game itself, they actually demonstrate how you're supposed to do some of these moves and demonstrate that it is possible to get a Grandmaster. They even talk about the grade in the demonstration and everything. So in the other games, they do no such thing. They realize people got really good at this game, so let's make it really hardcore. So this one's still new player friendly. So
yeah, just on the thought, like Mike Hager was talking about, like anyone can master this game in a year. Like, yeah, no problem. If you have previous Tetris experiences and you try to pick this game up, the main challenges that you're going to see is like how to deal with the high gravity, because unlike modern games, the high gravity comes with like higher difficulty. And so you have to get used to that instant gravity kind of mechanic. That's where most of the learning is going to take place. When it's slow, I'm sure a lot of you guys will have no problem with cranking out Tetrises. So the forced speed of 1 piece per second might also be like an issue. You can play a bit slower. I know, maybe stretch it out to like 2 pieces a second during instant gravity, but like for the most part, the game is pushing you, which is not something you see in modern Tetris games.
Yeah. Although it's also interesting because at a really high level, you push the game.
Yeah.
So it's sort of both happen. Actually.
Yeah. There's this transition period where instead of the game spanking you, you spank the game.
Yeah. That's what we're all about.
You're gonna give us
spanking and getting spanked. So this is frenetic here, and I'm a kind of a beginning player in TGM. I was able to reach grade S2 in about I'd say maybe a couple of months. I think it took me about 2 months, and it's been a lot of fun all the way. I've been talking to a lot of the TGM players here. And what you can also do is practice between the regular mode and 20G mode. And that way you can get used to high-speed rotation.
Yeah, 20G, the instant gravity mode, essentially. The game has a secret code, where you can start the game at the highest gravity setting.
Yeah, so it's basically practice mode built right into the game.
Yeah. And the board, TGM1, goes for it's very reasonable. It's about 150 to maybe 200.
Yeah, it's not
maybe less, like 100 to 150.
Yeah, 100 to 150. So, guys, if you have a cap, pick this up because it's a lot of fun. I've come from mostly a shmups and fighters background, and getting into the Tetris has opened a whole new world for me. Like, I'm able to play just a couple, 2-3 games of Tetris and you're like, whoa, that was only 5 minutes, or that was only 7 minutes, or 8, and then you just get a lot of gameplay packed in that.
And the later games are even shorter. They're just so brutal and intense. The full game is like only 6 or 7 minutes. It's great.
Yeah.
I like that. It's very bite-sized
very intense, very
Yeah, and every game is fresh too. You know, you don't get bored with the same level pattern over and over.
This is not like memorizing. You know, you don't have to sit down and memorize. Well, you might have to learn some of the kind of advanced rotation techniques, but it's very different.
You memorize concepts, not levels. So it's always fun to apply this knowledge in fresh new ways each game.
Oh, this is looking to be a good run, actually.
Oh, nice.
Or not bad.
So, do you guys think maybe we could start switching over to TGM2?
Yeah, maybe TGM2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so TGM1, very, very basic, one game mode you play here. We're going to switch up to TGM2. It has quite a lot of game modes by comparison.
6.
Yeah.
Oh, counter stop! And we get this sweet background of like a fetus in the final stage. Why? I don't know.
Yeah, the bio theme is interesting in TGM1.
Yeah, this game certainly had a. Each TGM game has a very well, it has a theme.
Yes.
I don't know if it's coherent or cohesive, but
Yeah. This game has like kind of a biological theme. Like some of the pictures look like something viewed under a microscope and weird trippy shit, like a fetus floating in the background.
Yeah, I love that fetus. The fetus just eggs me on. You're fetus.
she's like, yeah. Even babies can do this.
Even babies can do this as well. I'm not even out of the womb. I can do this.
Yeah.
I don't know. Personally, I get like a Catherine Nightmare vibe from this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. For sure. Oh, am I gonna beat Color Piece time? We'll see.
Oh god, I think you might do it.
Oh!
Yeah,
Nice.
And this is important to note. In this game, the credit roll does nothing.
Yeah, it's just like extra time to like celebrate victory laps.
Yeah, it was sort of.
And a happy, relaxing song that you only hear when you beat the game.
And I think it's actually called Happy Happy.
It's literally called Happy
The
Happy.
name of the song is Happy Happy.
Yeah.
But you're gonna see a very different credits experience in the later
Yeah, I'm
games.
sure if any of you have seen some videos of later games, you'll know what's coming, but we won't spoil it yet. Okay, enough credits. You can skip them too.
You can skip them, yeah, you can all start.
You can't do it on the other games.
No!
That would be so
I
awesome.
really wish. Cool. Yeah. 10:28. That was not bad.
No, that's a good run.
My personal record is I think 9 minutes 55 or so. So that's not bad for me.
So a few seconds better than my best record, and his random game was a few seconds better than my random game. You can see, like, I don't know, it's cool.
Yeah, nice. Okay, guys. Well, we're gonna go pause the stream. Hang on and stay in the chat because we're gonna go and switch PCBs out. Okay.
The next game is fucking awesome. Don't leave.
Do not leave.
Do not leave.
It only gets better from
It
here.
only
It will
gets
get so hyped. Just be ready. It's gonna be amazing. Woo!
Okay. All right. We're gonna go off air.
I definitely had days where